All right, last little bit, promise, for this subject. So remember, we're referencing BibleHub.com for Psalm 78. The author is Asaph, appointed by David over the temple courts for the musicians and recordings and stuff like that. So he is trying to warn the next generation. And then verse 9, he gives one of the best examples of a total failing by the Israelites, where they could have had the day, but they lost to the Philistines, or the men of Gath, which is where we get Goliath, by the way. The Philistines were one of those tribes that the Israelites did not wipe out. So God told them, like, these are always going to be a thorn in your side, because they didn't obey. And now here's Asaph telling a story to the next generation, like, hey, here's your warning. Listen, please. And the Israelites failed so bad that they actually needed a scapegoat, which was the men of Ephraim, who had all the advantage. But since God wasn't with them, they failed right as Israel needed them. They were compared to a faulty bow. Now, does this mean literally that the men of Ephraim's bows failed because it rained and their bowstrings became slack? Not necessarily. That is just a possible historical account. Biblically, Asaph is telling us here that the men of Ephraim, the elite warriors of the Israelite foot soldiers, failed them right as they needed them to win this battle. And they got wiped out. So, how should we take this as a warning? Our hearts need to be turned to God at all times. We need to do His will. Not only do His will when it matters most, but practice our strength. Our greatest strength is God with us, the Holy Spirit in us. Obviously, this is an Old Testament story, but under the New Covenant, ask and you shall receive the power of the Holy Spirit. If we do not turn our hearts toward God and listen to the warnings of those that have come before, we could end up like the men of Ephraim, a footnote in history of failure. Not even good failure where you failed and then you recovered and made right. No, just failure. Don't be like the men of Ephraim. Keep your bowstrings ready. Bless you.